And so our members will be able to have a look. So this will be posted on our YouTube channel, so that when our members are looking for how did that Quilt As You Go demo go, they'll be able to have a look at that later on. So that will get posted later today. So I would like to welcome everybody. We have a number of new members since our last meeting. So we've got, and I'm not sure all of them are here, but some of them are. We have Anna Hales, Cindy Cook, Catherine Smith, Diane Weeks, and we have a guest that may be coming, Kim may be coming. And the other note before we get started, for today's, there's a pillowcase sew along later on in our program. And for that, you need 3 pieces of fabric. You need a 27-inch piece of fabric, a 9-inch strip, and a 2-inch strip. Those are all by width of fabric. So at some point, if you haven't already, can you, and you wanted to join in the pillowcase sew along, pull out from your stash if you wanted to join a 27-inch piece, a 9-inch piece, and a 2-inch piece. So that's for later on in our meeting. First up, we have a guest, and I'm going to have Linda Carter introduce our guest.
Okay. Today we have Catherine Doris Plesko, who is from the London Cross Culture Learner Center, and she is discovering every day the rich and diverse world of the newcomer community with the London Cross Cultural Learner Center. She's been serving as the center's fund development manager since June of 2018. Her career spans 20 years in the not-for-profit sector. She has worked in the performing arts, environmental, health, educational, and social services sectors, raising millions of dollars to support the London community. Catherine holds a Bachelor of Public Relations from Mount St. Vincent University, a Master's of Arts in Philanthropy and Development from St. Mary's University of Minnesota, and holds the professional designation of Certified Fundraising Executive. Catherine has served on the boards of the London Region Fundraising Executive and the Association of Fundraising Professionals, London and Region Chapter. So welcome, Catherine, and you're going to tell us a little bit about the Learner Center.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. Can I share my screen with you? I have a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, I will make you co-host. So we have spotlighted you now, and I've made you co-host, Catherine, so you should be able to share that.
Okay, let me just see. Go. All right, let's see.
Perfect.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Lovely. So let me just do this. Oh. There we go. We are all set. So the London Cross Cultural Learner Center, for those of you who are unfamiliar with us, we are a newcomer agency. So we help newcomers settle in the London community. I'm sure you've heard of the Afghan refugees that have been coming in. So the CCLC has been one of the agencies that has been welcoming those newcomers to our city. So we provide integration services, and that means we have all kinds of services to help newcomers feel like they're part of the community and help them discover what Canada has to offer and how they can participate. So we're very much, all the work that we do stems from our values. And we are very much in the business, if you will, of empowering newcomers. So really, we feel that when newcomers say they don't need us anymore, we've done our jobs, and we feel very good about that. So we have settlement services that allow newcomers to stay. So we are almost like a hotel for newcomers. We have one floor in our building, Jeremiah's house, and we have a separate home called Joseph's house. And we host newcomers in those two residences. So the building on the left, 505 Dundas Street, that's our main building. And for a lot of people, if you've driven by, you see polka dots on our building. And a lot of people are kind of curious going, oh, that's interesting. What's it there? If you stand back, it's the map of the world.
Catherine, I think
Yes.
we're just seeing your first slide.
Oh, it's not. Okay, let me just see.
When I did a Zoom recently, I had to go into the bottom of the slide and use that little arrow there.
The
The other thing you can do, Catherine.
Let me just
is-
see.
Yeah, now
How's
you're
that?
good. Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for telling me. I have 3 monitors and all 3 monitors are showing me different slides. All right, so here's the building. Can you see the polka dots on the building?
Yep.
So those polka dots, and if you stand across the street, you can see the map of the world. And on our right is Joseph's house. So that's a small residence. It has 9 rooms. Just see, now we're seeing stuck. There we go. So we have newcomer services. So newcomer services, all kinds of services that help newcomers settle in. So we have, right when they come in, we call them resettlement assistance. So that literally helps them. We find them a place to stay, whether that's Jeremiah's house or the hotel, depending on how many newcomers we have. Right now, we have so many that they don't fit all in our residence. So we have to have them stay at the hotel. Orientation services for newcomers, that's when we start providing them with, it's a continuation. We have social insurance numbers, helping the kids get registered for school, the OHIP cards, all those services. Community Connections is also a program that supports newcomers, and that just allows them literally to connect to the community. So we have women's circle, we've taught, we have a sewing circle. So for a lot of the women that come in, they may know how to sew by hand, but they've never used a sewing machine before. And so we have volunteers who come and show newcomers how to sew. And sometimes when we talk about newcomers, it can be very confusing because there are so many terms: immigrants, newcomers, refugees, refugee claimants. What does it all mean? They're literally just technical legal terms, determines what kind of services they are entitled to have. So a newcomer is basically anyone who's new to the country. It can be an immigrant or it can be a refugee. So when a person is granted the right to live in Canada, they're called permanent residents. A person has to be outside of their country to request a refugee status. And so they have to be facing persecution because their race, their religion, their nationality, their membership to a particular group, their sexual orientation, all those things allow them to become refugees. A refugee claimant is the same thing. The person wishes to become a refugee, but they haven't gone through the process with the United Nations to be recognized as a refugee. So they come to our border and say, I have reasons to be scared for my life because of my religion, all the other things I mentioned. And I would like to claim refugee status here in your country. So while the government reviews their claim, they're called a refugee claimant. Government assisted refugees, these are most of the Afghan refugees that you hear about on the news. So the government of Canada has pledged to support 40,000 Afghan refugees, which is a lot of people to move. So far, we're almost at 8,000 refugees that have come in lately. So the London Cross-Cultural Learners Center will welcome approximately 400 to 500 of them every year. So they're from Syria, they're from Iraq, they are from basically everywhere that you hear stories of war, of challenges for people in those countries. This is where our refugees are from. And they are government assisted refugees, and they get certain privileges and supports through the CCLC and other organizations. There are refugee claimants who have very limited support simply because of how they came to Canada as a refugee. They will get some support, but not all of the support that government assisted refugees have. And refugee claimants, they basically pay their own way to come here. So they've paid for their flight to come. They have to pay for where they stay. They have to pay for their food. So that's why Joseph's House is very important. We provide, although they have to pay to stay there and to eat, we charge, very minimal rates. We have a lot of, some of the donations, for example, that come to the CCLC help Joseph's House. We provided recently welcome home kits so that when refugee claimants leave Joseph's House, they have a pot, a pan. They have some cleaners, and they can have quilts that will be lovingly made by your group. And so they will have these packages that they will be able to take with them, because of course, these refugee claimants come to Canada with sometimes a suitcase, sometimes the clothes on their backs. It all depends on how they managed to get here. So to have something to call their own in Canada, in their new life, is very important to them. So we're very thankful for the donations of your group, because it makes a big difference to have something that is made by someone from that country that says, welcome, we want you here, we're here to support you. And it has a profound impact on their lives. So these are all terms: immigrant, private sponsors. Private sponsorship is when individuals combine their efforts together, usually because it's a big undertaking, to sponsor a family to come to Canada. So I've recently worked with a group that combines London, Aylmer, some of the outlying communities. They've pulled their resources together, and they literally sponsored a family. So they fundraised to help a family from, they're Syrians, they were refugees in Turkey, and they've now come to Canada. And this group of about, I think they're about 20, there's about 7 organizations and about 20 volunteers, and they're helping this family of 3 daughters and the parents settle into Canada. So here's just a quick quiz time. No need to actually answer, but just think about it. Is this myth or fact? Refugees in Canada receive greater assistance than from the government than other Canadian pensioners. The answer is it's a myth, because the fact is the government assisted refugees receive minimal financial support. They do receive some, so they provide basics so they can get an apartment for their families and some food, but not a whole lot more than that. So it's very basic what they get. Myth or fact, asylum seekers, so those are individuals who are seeking claimants, or refugee claimant or asylum seeker, jump the queue. So that's a myth. Refugee claims do not affect other immigration applications. So it doesn't matter if Immigration is when you voluntarily come to a country, you have education usually, or you have a skilled trade and you want to come and set up in a new country like Canada and, you know, work as, I don't know, a teacher or something, that you've been certified and you want to come to Canada to have a different life. So that is a very different stream than refugees. So myth or fact, criminals pose as refugees to enter Canada. That's a myth. Entering Canada is very difficult. They have to, for the family, for example, who were in Turkey, who came to Canada, it took them 5 years to get here. So it is not a quick process. They are very thorough. They look at all of the possibilities, a lot of background fact checking. So it is a rigorous program. Myth or fact, refugees are a burden on the Canadian economy. That's a myth. It is amazing. If you've had an opportunity to speak to a refugee who's recently arrived in Canada, they are so grateful to be away from the dangers of where they are from. They are very determined and resilient people who want to make a better life for themselves, for their families, and contribute to the Canadian economy. Sometimes I have to confess that when I hear stories from our refugees, it is a story of resiliency that is unbelievable. Even we have a lot of our staff who are former refugees. And we recently had kind of a story sharing time. And one of my colleagues, who I've known now for about 4 years, I learned that she came, she's Kurdish, so that's part of her identity. Kurds have been persecuted in Iran, Iraq, Turkey, because of their religious beliefs. They are not Muslim faith. And so they have been persecuted for quite a long time. And I learned that she came as a young woman to Canada by walking in the middle of winter with no limited supplies, no winter clothes. They had a few things, but really not much. They had horses to carry some of their supplies, but the snow was so deep that they had to send the horses back. And so they walked for weeks to get to where they needed to go in order to find safety. So it really is quite amazing, the work and the resiliency of these individuals. So myth or fact, children of refugees are more likely to engage in criminal activities such as taking drugs or being involved in gangs. That's a myth. So they're actually, research has shown they're less likely. They are very driven young people, and that is not usually where we find them. Myth or fact, children of refugees fail to thrive in Canada and become a drain in the economy. That is a myth as well. They are incredibly resilient. They have higher graduation rates than Canadian-born peers. So what can you do to learn more about the CCLC? You're doing it right now. You're having me coming to chat with you, which I'm thrilled to be doing. It gives us an opportunity to really touch base with the community, to let them know who refugees are, what they do, how they can contribute, opportunities for them to participate. And you're doing lovely things by donating quilts to us, and we are making sure that they find a good home. Perhaps if you'd like to consider maybe hosting a very easy quilt, maybe pillowcase, maybe a little something that perhaps we can have a Zoom meeting with some of our ladies from the sewing group. Maybe you can teach them a little bit basics of quilting. That might be something that they would enjoy. There are opportunities as well for volunteering. If any of you are ever interested in volunteering, you can go on our website at www.lcclc.org, and there's a Get Involved button. and you can volunteer. Let's see, you can make a donation, but you're donating your quilts, and so we are a very
Catherine, you managed to.
Oh, there we
you
go. Sorry about that. Are there any questions? Nope. Well, you can always go on the CCLC website to find out more. We have Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, so you can see some more stories about the CCLC. And if you ever have any further questions about the work that we do, I am always happy to answer your questions.
We do have a question that came in the chat, Catherine, and the question
Sure.
is, do you take donated sewing machines?
Wow, that's very interesting. You know what? I don't think we've ever had anybody offer to donate a sewing machine, but I would, you know what? I will connect with my colleague to see if they need additional sewing machines. I'm sure they would appreciate it, because what we've done is during COVID, of course, we haven't been able to get together to have the sewing lessons. So what they've done is they signed out the sewing machines to our clients who are taking them home and doing some sewing projects there and doing kind of what you're doing now. They're having Zoom with the ladies that with their sewing machines at home. So I will ask if you'd like to maybe provide your name and email to maybe Linda, and then she can send them to me, so that if I do find out that they want the sewing machines, I'll be able to get in touch with you. Anything else?
So there are a couple of other questions that did come in. And one of the questions, so we've asked our members to make bed size quilts, so twins and queens.
Yeah.
And the question is, do you take lap quilts or just bed size?
No, I think we'll take lab quilts if you would. We'd be thrilled, really. I mean, we appreciate all the work that you're doing for us, and I know that it's a lot of work, and I think the lap quilts would be lovely.
Perfect, thank you. And another question for you, do you know who the artist was for the dotted globe on the building?
That's a good question. I do not know, but we have staff who have been with the CCLC for a long time, and I am positive somebody has that information.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to turn it back to Linda Carter.
Thank you, Catherine. Excellent presentation. Now we know a lot more about the Learner Center, and we will be in touch, I'm sure.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for having me. I was thrilled to be here, and thank you again for the quilts. I can see from all the videos, all your beautiful work. I'm very impressed. I sadly am not a quilter. I think putting me in needles and sewing machines is not a good combination, but I admire all of you for your hard work. Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right, for the next part of this session, we have a wrap up of 2021 and what's coming in 2022. So I do have a slideshow for that, which I'm going to share my documents. As soon as I find the slideshow. All right, can everybody see the slideshow?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. So usually we do this in January, but January we had a guest lecturer. So so we put this off until now, to this meeting. Basically, it's just a wrap up of what we did in 2021, and I'm so thrilled with all that we managed to do in spite of the pandemic. We learned so many things on how to meet virtually, and I know that our executive worked so hard to put everything together to make a great year, to keep our community connected, and to just to keep things going for the Guild. So I want to first thank the executive for all of their work. So over the course of 2021, in February, we had Krista Henneberry from Poppy Prints. She gave a lecture on finding your signature style and a workshop of speed date with improv. In March, we had the Modern Quilt Studio with Weeks Ringel and Phil Kerr. And I know that there were a lot of takeaways from the color and value lecture and from the workshop on rethinking color. In April, Krista de Miranda spoke with us on her through quilting, and I loved her lecture and how she journeyed both through her life and through her quilting journey itself. And then we had a workshop with her on her Orion Spur, and I know that a number of people have continued to follow Christina, and I saw on Instagram some of the latest paper piecing stars that she's just released one, and I'm pretty sure at least one of our members has made did some of the testing for us. So I'm thrilled that we can meet with these quilters and continue our journey of exploration of modern quilting with them. In May, we had David Owen Hastings. He was a fabulous speaker. I really enjoyed him. The Minimalist Design Maximum Impact lecture and our mini mod quilt workshop was I keep seeing those in different forms as well. And behind me, you can see one that I made a little bit larger. And so I really enjoy his style. In May, we also introduced our in-guild mini mod swap, which was a lot of fun. And we saw a number of items come through with that too. And we keep seeing those mini mod items pop up in people's quilts too. So that's a lot of fun. In June, we had a review of some of the QuiltCon 2021 winning quilts and hints from Quilton teachers, and Jan put that together for us. And then we had a workshop with Jenny Hayes on piecing accurate curves. July, we learned more about color and value from Kristen McCoy. August, we did Interlocking Stars workshop. September, we learned from Carol Lowell Shaw on her take on what is a modern quilt. And we had participants in her 5x5 workshop. October was an absolutely amazing trunk show by Sandra Thomas. And that's actually on our YouTube channel as well. So when the follow-up information comes out after this meeting, with the link to our YouTube channel, you can see that trunk show if you wanted to watch it again. But her absolutely amazing wearable creations, and I love having more time to explore the journeys of our own quilters. It was really wonderful to hear how Sandra's evolved through the years in the ways that she's designed couture clothes and moved that into quilted creations. November, we had Tamara Kate with her fabulous designing fabric lecture, and then she did a lovely day workshop quilt. December, we had a preview of the 2022 program and a demo on the modern approach to cross stitch. We ended 2021 with 69 members, including 13 that were new to the Guild. So what do we have coming up? Currently, we have already registered 72 members, and 11 of them are new to the Guild. So thank you to everyone for registering, and welcome to all of our new members. We are going to be revising our registration process when we have guest lectures. So we're going to try this to make sure that, try it out in just sending the link to everyone, and only guests will need to register. So please do not share the link, but invite your friends that you think might enjoy our guest lectures to register on our website. It's a $10 fee to join to listen to any of our lectures. And the next piece is our financial update and budget for 2022. So I'm going to stop my share and where'd it go? Expand that. Rachel, I have made you a co-host, so you should be able to share. You are already at it. You're so good.
Great. And I'm not sure what view you guys have, if you can see my notes section or not.
Nothing yet, Rachel.
Just the first page that says 2021 year in review?
No, not that either. I think you have to click on that file and then share again.
All right. Let's see. How about now?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. So first of all, I'm at the office today, so you guys are getting my lovely background. I'm Rachel Hellaney. I'm the treasurer for the London Modern Quilt Guild. I've been a member since, I think, 2019. It feels like it's been a bit of a fog over the last few years. But I'm here today to share with you a look back at 2021 in terms of our Guild's financial health, and a look forward in terms of our budget for the upcoming year, 2022. So I wanted to start by sharing that as we started 2021, we had a balance.
Sorry, Rachel. What we're looking at is the PowerPoint screen, but not the slideshow started yet.
Okay. Can you see that now, Jan?
Yeah, if you click on each page, that will work fine.
Okay, we're going to try it that way then. Make that smaller. How's that?
Good.
Okay. So what I'd like to start with is by giving a sense of where we started 2021 financially. So as a guild, we have two main accounts. We have a PayPal account, which many of you will have used to pay for lectures and workshops. And it's very useful for us in paying vendors, particularly vendors that are not Canadian vendors, like the London Modern Quilt, or the Modern Quilt Guild, pardon me, itself. And we also have a Libro business bank account. And so that's our primary account. And again, when you pay through our website, your payments get deposited into our bank account. And so we started our year in 2021 with just about $14,000 in the bank, just a little bit more. And we've closed the year. So as of December 31st, we closed the year, and you can see that our balances have increased quite a bit, both in our PayPal account, but also in our Libro account. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about why that is. And, it seems like as I said, we've made quite a bit of money in 2022, but in reality, that growth is because as members, we all pay in advance for things like workshop registrations. We pay our annual membership dues or guild events like spring retreat that we have coming up. And so at December 31st, we had actually collected just over $5,000 for things that hadn't taken place yet, that will take place this year. And so if we think about it in personal finance terms, it's a little bit like we've received our paycheck, but we haven't gone and bought our groceries or paid our rent, or paid for our kids' activities or put gas in the car. And so the money that we had in the bank as of December 31st, about 5,000 of that is committed to pay for vendors, speakers, Modern Quilt dues. Some of those expenses now that we're in February have happened. Some are yet to happen. We have some registrations for workshops that will happen in March or later. And so while it looks like we have more money in the bank, we also have more commitments to spend that money. The other thing to keep in mind is that the executive has allocated some of the funds we have in the bank.
Look at it tomorrow because she's coming tomorrow, right? Yes. Yeah.
We've allocated some of the funds that we have in the bank to cover expenses for our fall 2023 quilt show that are due in advance. And those would be things like deposit for venue, advertising for the quilt show, and as well money to purchase things like display racks that we would otherwise have to rent and only get to use once. Also, just to note, I know we're all very aware that we've been meeting on Zoom, but that means that we've had lower expenses related to facility rental through the city. We also have had lower, we're not buying office supplies or paper plates and cutlery for our potlucks and things like that. So those expenses we haven't had this year. We've also chose not to participate in the QuiltCon charity quilt in 2021, which I don't know if we've made a decision about for the upcoming year, but we did budget some money and didn't end up actually having expenses towards that. And so that's looking backwards, but now looking forwards to this year, 2022, I want to talk to you a little bit about how the Guild is funded. I think it's important that we all understand where our money comes from. And so you can see that actually the majority of our money that comes in comes from the dark green, which is programming. And so this is registration fees. And when guests attend meetings, we charge some money for that, as Linda just said. And so 55% of what we intend to bring in this year actually comes from registration fees. And then almost 40% comes from membership fees. And so the vast majority of the revenue that supports our Guild activities is programming and membership. We bring in a small amount of money, about 4%, $500 through advertising and sponsorship. And those are the partners that sponsor our website. And then as well, you will have noticed if you've gone on the website to register for any of our programming, we've added the option to contribute towards our community outreach. And so we're taking a guess and projecting that maybe our members will contribute over the course of this year to support that. So we've put in a little bit of money to recognize that new initiative this year. So that's how our Guild is funded, but how do we spend our money? So again, I think it's really important to note that the majority of our expenses, 53% in this dark green, goes to programming. And that's paying the speakers that come in to do lectures and workshops for us. And then 22% is related to our operating expenses. And so our operating expenses, those are a combination of things like facility, facility rental. It's a combination of things like our Modern Quilt Guild dues. And so really, between meetings, between programming, and between our operating expenses, most of the money we spend goes towards putting on the programming that we do as a Guild each year. And as Linda just walked through in 2021, that was a really significant amount of activity that we paid for as a Guild. We do have a budget for library acquisitions. And so in each monthly newsletter, you'll get an update about what we've acquired and how to access the library collection that we have, which is pretty substantial. So we've put some money aside to make sure we can continue to grow our library. We also have set aside, you'll notice, the same amount of money that we projected we might bring in to support our community outreach. We've projected as spending on our community outreach. And then as well, we have a little bit of money set aside if we do decide to do the QuiltCon charity quilt this year. And so I'll just pause here and leave this on the screen. This PowerPoint presentation will be available to everybody after the meeting, so you don't need to write anything down now. You'll get a copy of this. This table that you see here, the colors don't quite entirely match up to the colors here, but the categories do. And so what you'll see is that the amounts of money in this table, if you go back to the two graphs, they match. And so you can see in a little bit more detail what's in our operating costs, our administrative costs. What is included in meeting expenses in addition to our facility rental. And so on that note, I just would say thank you. I think as a member, not speaking as the treasurer, I've just been so pleased with the opportunities I've had as a quilter through this group in the last year to expand my comfort, the things and speakers I've gotten to participate in. And that wouldn't be possible for me as an individual. It's only through this guild and us coming together and contributing collectively to be able to bring this programming. And our budget is what allows us to do that. So I'd be pleased to take any questions. I also would be pleased to receive questions by email after this meeting if you'd like some time when you get this slide deck to look through it. And my email will be sent around. It's also on the slide here. And so, Linda, I think I'll stop my share here.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rachel. That's a great update. Are there any questions that you have, Rachel, at this point? You made it easy for us to understand it. Thanks, Rachel.
Okay, Linda, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to pop off and go back to work. But I will, as I said, I am available for questions as everybody digests this information.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to share my slide again. Does everybody see that? All right. One of the things that we are looking for at some point in March, we generally, or March, we usually do this so that we give the treasurer enough time to put together the year-end reports. And so in March, we look for a volunteer to review the financial books. And Rachel has everything available digitally, so the review would be digital. So we will be looking for volunteers, hopefully 2 volunteers, to review our financial books to make sure that everything is in as expected. So if you can let me know if you might be interested in doing that review, that would be wonderful. You can let me know after the meeting. All right. Next up, we have block of the month. Angelina.
That's me. Our block of the month host this month is Karen. I think Karen is on our meeting.
I am.
Would you like to just share a little bit about what block you chose and why? And
Sure.
you know?
Yeah. So I picked a 9 patch. So I have to just go back a bit. I usually paper piece almost everything. And so when I started to think of what kind of block I would present, I would have loved to have done paper piecing, but I would have to do that live. Like that's pretty hard to do over the Zoom. So anyway, so I went with a 9 patch. I love the 9 patch because it's simple and it can be very graphic. And I really like that about it. So I did a 9 patch with 2.5-inch squares. So my finished block was 2 colors. So I did the 9 patch and it finished 6.5 inches, right? Yeah. And then I just
Karen,
set it.
you mean to have your video on? I'm sorry to
Oh,
interrupt,
sorry.
but we can't see if you're, it sounds like you're trying to
Yeah.
gesture to something we can't see.
Oh, well, I'm not actually doing anything. I'm just talking. 1 sec. Bum, 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 bum. Where do I go? Do I go to start video? No.
Yes, start
Yes.
start video.
Got it. Okay, here I am. Just a minute, I gotta turn that light up. Sorry about this.
Karen, do you have your block to show while you're talking?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just getting it. I have many that I made. So there's a video, or not a video, but there's a step out that's included, right, Angelina? It's going to be in the
Yes, it will come in the post meeting notes.
yeah. So anyway, so this is the finished block. So it's just really basic, but what I did, instead of centering it, I put it off center but I don't think I put it off center enough. It just looks like it's accidentally not centered instead of purposely not centered. So maybe like that would be better. Okay, so there's it in orange and white. That one is centered. So, I mean, it's just a really simple block, but I think it has a lot of potential. Because if you put the 9 patch down towards one edge, right? If you put it down towards here, and then had your, you could have a circle of the 9 patches sort of with 4 patches put together. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not rocket science. It's pretty basic, but I think it has lots of potential and it's really graphic. That's what I liked about it. And I made it the instructions to finish, I think it finished 17 inches so that there would be lots of seam allowance to play with when you put it a quilt as you go, when you construct it with quilt as you go. So that's it.
Perfect. Thank you, Karen.
You're
I think
welcome.
I think your block is fun. Linda and I were like, oh, that's really fun. It's interesting. It is very simple,
Yeah.
but as you move that 9 patch around, you can create
Right.
really different elements. And then if you think about an outreach quilt and gathering a bunch of those, what you can kind of make that finished quilt look like. I think it's interesting.
Even if you did the outside colors differently, but the small 9 patches were all white, let's say.
Right.
And then, right, you could just have a really graphic looking, it'd be pretty spectacular, I think, or in black and white. All right.
Okay. Just a reminder, so the block of the month instructions are posted on our London Modern Quilt Guild website. Lindsay posted them, so they're there. And if you would like to do a second block for our outreach quilting, we are following the birthstones, and so February is amethyst. It's that nice rich purple. So if you're willing to do an extra block or multiple extra blocks for February, please do them in amethyst. And if anybody is interested in hosting a month, if you would like to choose a traditional block and come up with a modern design, you can send me a little message over Zoom, or you can reach out to me on email or Facebook, whatever. We still need some more hosts. So if you're willing to take on the challenge, we would love that.
I love your block of the month behind you, Angelina.
Yes, there was
January.
My interpretation of Jan's with the garnet. Yeah, it was fun. Really fun. Over to you, Linda.
All right, perfect. And I'm going to go now to Linda Carter, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the community outreach.
Okay, so in the newsletter, I mentioned one of the new members, Elaine Cook, tried out one of the kits that I put together. It was a panel with some fabric to make some borders. And she was our guinea pig because it was the very first kit for the outreach. And despite some few problems, not too many, she did manage to complete the quilt. She had to purchase some fabric, lovely balloons on the fabric, which matched the panel very nicely. And then she used the fabric that she couldn't use for a border in another quilt that she's made for outreach. So Elaine's been very busy doing that. She's completed the one kit. And we're going to be starting something called a sew along. Today, near the end of the meeting, we'll do a sew along pillowcase. But each month now, we'll have a sew along that's focused on the block of the month. For February, it will focus on both the January block of the month and the February block of the month. And the meeting will be on the Thursday after this meeting, after our guild meeting, Thursday evening at 7 for an hour. So we'll just work on some blocks, and we'll also invite people who don't want to work on the blocks but prefer to join us for social time and chatting. They can work on their own project. And also we'll have a topic for discussion. And this Thursday's topic is going to be about starching your fabric. So hopefully people will be interested in that, and we'll get some blocks made for outreach, as well as making your block of the month for your own quilt. I think that's about it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Linda.
Could I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Just about the block of the month. If we're doing one for the community quilt, are you doing them by month, a quilt by month, or are you going to do multiple months in one quilt? And with that, can we hold on to our extra blocks until we're sort of at the end of the block of the month, you know, and then give them to you all at once? Or do you want them before then? And where do we send them? I can't remember.
And I'll start with your last question. Ann Lyons is the one who's our central spot for gathering things up for the community outreach. So though any of the block of the month pieces that you have finished, they do go to Ann, and I'll include her information again in the follow-up meeting. And good questions about when do they go to the, you know, are they all going in one, or are they going at the end? And Linda, I'm not sure that we know the answer to that yet.
I think either way is fine. If you want to hold on to them, we're not going to be putting a quilt together anytime soon because we don't have enough blocks anyway. And I think that people may want to see Jan's presentation on Quilt As You Go, because perhaps you might be interested in taking that block of the month for outreach and doing like actually quilting that one block before submitting it, so that when we put together the outreach quilt, it will each block will already be quilted. So we'll put on the sashing or one of the other methods that Jan's going to show us to put the quilt together, and then the quilt will already be quilted after we sew all the blocks together. So if you prefer to make a block and drop it off at Ann Lyons unquilted, that's fine too. So at the moment, anything goes.
Okay, thank you.
The original plan was to put every month's blocks together. So that was the purpose of choosing birthstone, so that there would be some commonality of color. Otherwise, you know, we could just end up with a lot of disparate blocks that didn't really work together. So the idea was to go month by month, but as Linda just said, as the Lindas just said, anything goes, whatever makes you comfortable, whatever makes you happy. And I think this will probably change a little bit once we can start meeting in person, right? Then people can start bringing their blocks. We can see what we have. You know, we can kind of collectively decide on some designs and what's working and what's not working. So whatever makes you happy, Sharon.
Yeah, and I think if we got enough blocks in 1 month to make a quilt, that's one thing, but I don't think we're at that stage yet where we're going to have I don't know, 20 amethyst colored blocks to put together for a quilt in February. So I think just anything at the moment. We'll work it out as we go.
Yes, yes. Perfect. Thanks. Thanks, Linda. Thanks for the questions. And Elaine asked, will we sew the blocks together? Do we want volunteers? Yes and yes. And again, we don't have all of this set down in stone, and things are changing as we go. So we'll Alicia wants a big sewing bee at Christmas. We may be able to do that too. We might have some of the opportunities in the sew-alongs to do that too. So we'll look for opportunities as we go along, and hopefully have some fun changing things and making things work in different ways. So we will change as we need. We'll be resilient. That's my favorite word for today. Excellent. And thank you to everybody who's considering making a block for the donation quilts. That's awesome. All right. The next item I have on our list, we are still trying to put together our member retreat that is scheduled for March 25th and 27th. We will make a go, no go call the beginning of March. So you still have time to sign up for if you'd like to. You can sign up by putting a, there's an option on the website to purchase a down payment for the retreat of $100, or you can e-transfer that to the Guild. The facility, the Best Western, has been wonderful. They have not required a deposit. We have not had to put anything down. We can offer, if it doesn't go, everyone will receive all of their down payment, and early. Some of you who purchased earlier did pay in full, so those funds will come back to you if it doesn't run. But so we're happy to be able to offer a full refund if it doesn't run. But so we still have a couple of weeks to decide whether you're comfortable in participating in retreat, and if you are, please sign up. I know that Karen and Tammy have been working hard on this. Karen's our cruise director, so I know that she's got a lot of fun things planned for us.
Oh, we've got prizes, we've got activities, we've got lots of sewing, yes. And a little getaway with your friends and get to know some Guild members better. And so, yeah, I can't give away any secrets, but we got a fun, we're planning a fun factor.
Right. Excellent. Thanks, Karen.
Okay, you're welcome.
And there's a question on any thoughts of it not being the overnight, and I guess that's completely, I mean, if you wanted to just come during the day, that's wonderful, but we can't price it differently. The price for the retreat is based on the occupancy. And so, yes, you can do that. It would still be the same price. But if you didn't want to stay overnight or couldn't stay overnight, you can still join us during the day. But that doesn't change the price any. All right, so hopefully if you've been a little bit hesitant about signing up for the retreat, that knowing that we will make the call early March, and you will be able to get a full refund if we cancel it, but we hope that we have enough to make it run. All right. And the next update that I have is from Kristen about the East Lyons Community Center.
Hello. Lindsay, I am not turning on my video, so don't worry that you are not going to see me. And nobody needs to write anything down because this will either be on the website, probably on the website, and sent out prior to the March meeting. So you'll get all that information that I'm giving you now then. If all goes well, we will be doing our March meeting in person at the new East Lyons Community Center. Linda's planning on doing a hybrid, so there's going to be the Zoom option as well if you can't make it, or if you're from a distance, because I know we have some members this year that don't even live in the city. They just joined our guild because we have such an amazing program to offer. So any of the old members that used to go to the old East Lyons Center, you will know where you're going. It's the exact same location, 1731 Churchill Ave. So that, for anybody who doesn't know, is near Clark Road and Dundas Street. It's obviously on Churchill, and it's the northeast corner of that block, Churchill, and I'm going to say Edmonton Street as your reference point. That's the northeast corner. So when you get to that area, there's parking off of both Churchill and Edmonton Street. And the entrance to the community center is again in that northeast corner of the block. There are a bunch of different doors around the building, but they're all locked, but you can only go in through the one. So you'll see a large parking lot, and then you'll see like a pull around driveway, and then some handicap parking. So that's where the actual main entrance is. So when you go, you are welcome to go into the pull around driveway, but you cannot park there. You can unload everything and just leave it there on the sidewalk and then go park your car. It is a fire lane, so you can't park there and go into the building and leave your car there for even a minute or two. And so then once you get inside, right now, because of COVID, they're doing screening and check-in at the front door. They want to see a QR code if you have it, and they want to see your ID and answer all the health questions and stuff. So our meeting starts at 1 o'clock. We're able to get into the building at 1 o'clock. Our meeting starts at 1:30. So you'll have a half an hour of time to get in and get checked in and settled for our meeting. So make sure you leave yourself enough time to do all that. And when you get into the building, you go to the left-hand hallway, and our meeting room is on the left-hand side. It's called a multi-purpose room. And we have both sides of it. We're able to put a membership check-in table in the hallway outside, so you can check in there with Angelina. Usually we do have a sign-in for members each month, so we know who's there. If there's anything you need to pick up or ask questions, that'll be the table outside. And we'll set up our library inside in the room so that we can check in and check out our books. And then when we're doing our program, they have a giant screen. It's amazing, so that we can do our PowerPoint and our Zoom lectures. They have audio so that the whole room has speakers in it. So even if you're sitting in the very back corner, you'll be able to see and hear everything. The one wall facing north is all windows. So there's wonderful natural light for when you're sewing. We'll be able to set up some tables around the perimeter of the room, and there's plugs as well. We have the supplies that we had at Boyle, the extension cords, the ironing tables, all that stuff, cutting boards. So we'll have all that set up at the second half of the meeting when we do our sew-in. First half will be the program with just chairs, and then the second half will be the tables and chairs for sewing. So I think that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Linda, can you think of anything else from when we were there?
I have a question.
Yep.
It's Karen. So my job on the executive is to search out conveners for the meetings. So should I, a fabric convener, so should we not do it in March, but start again in April with that? I'm just thinking March, the weather could be iffy.
Yeah.
If someone was coming. So maybe wait and start it up in April.
That sounds great. Karen, one of the things that we may be able to do, I know that I've got some items coming into me that will go to the outreach, like some donated fabrics,
Right.
that will be able to, members can have, I don't know details yet because I haven't seen it yet. It's supposed to be coming this week, but we'll be able to have a look at that and maybe make up some or take some of those pieces to make the community outreach quilts. So maybe that would be a good
In place
time
of the vendor thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll start making a list of vendors and contacting vendors going forward, starting in April. Okay. Perfect.
Thanks,
Okay.
Karen.
Yeah.
So the question about the actual date of the in-person meeting, it continues to be the second Saturday each month. We have the facility only from 1 o'clock until 5 o'clock. So we can enter the room at 1 o'clock. So we'll try and start the meeting at 1:30. So that we have a opportunity to make sure that the virtual piece is set up. And we have the room until 5 o'clock.
What is the actual date though? I know it's the second Saturday, but I'm just, the date will ring clear to me. Is it
March 12th? March 12th.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And we'll have lots more information. I know that when I went to the building, I went to the wrong door and couldn't get in. So so if you go to the entrance where the little drop-off area is, and there's a nice covered area, like there's a great big overhang so that if you're bringing things out of your car to drop off before you park, that will all be protected from the elements. So I think it's going to work really, really well. The facility is beautiful. And they've got the technology pieces that look like they should work well. So March is still going to be a bit of testing for us to make sure that it does work. Stick with us if we don't have all the details ironed out yet, because we're learning as we go. Maria, you have a question. You're on mute. Maria, you're on mute.
Okay, that helps. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Sorry to be a downer, just some COVID questions. Is there a limitation as to the number of people required in the building? Should we be signing up so that we don't exceed it? And also have people to a table type of thing?
Yeah, their capacity limits are on the facility. They will be setting up the chairs so that they're 6 feet apart. So even if we have as many participants as there are today, there should be enough chairs 6 feet apart so that we can maintain some social distancing. The tables, there is one table per person. We didn't measure those tables, Kristen, but they, if you're, yeah, so one person per table, if you're in the center of it, you're still going to be 6 feet from the other people. So when we will be doing it as I've seen done in retreats. So when you are actually sitting at your at the sew-in part, if you're at your table, we'll be wearing masks. If you're walking around, or if we're just in chairs, we'll be masked. But all of the facilities doing the check-in for they're checking your QR code for vaccines and your identity documents. The room itself has a capacity of 85, but they don't have limits on how many we can have in the room.
Okay,
does that answer all your questions?
It's good,
okay.
Thanks.
Okay, great.
Linda?
Yes.
I will put like a little diagram of like a map of the city, and then a little diagram of the building, so that we can see how to get to the door, how to get in the door, where the check-in is, walk around the corner to a room, and then just some more information on that. You could put it in next month's newsletter or on the website or whatever.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And the question comes in, what do we sew for this at the meetings? And that's completely up to you. If you want to work on your block of the month, you can do that. If you want to work on a personal project, you can do that. That is, you can decide what you want to do. Often we have demonstrations, so you might be working on a project. So it depends on the month. Like everything else, it depends. All right. Other questions? All right. Thank you, Kristen, for the update. It was pretty exciting to see the facility.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah. The washrooms are beautiful as well. I can't go anywhere and not check out the washrooms, you know.
Yeah.
All right. The next item I have on our agenda is Angelina. She's going to talk about our survey.
Back to me. So many of you participated in our survey, which I think was sometime November. So thanks to all of you that filled it in. We've taken the results of the survey. It comes in a really horrible Excel document that's terrible to read. And so we've kind of pulled all the like comments together and created a document. So that document was posted yesterday on our London Modern Quilt Guild website. And in the follow-up email to this meeting that Linda sends out, there will be a link in there for those of you who would like to see how people responded to the survey. It's really interesting. There's some very clear themes, which is great. And then you can see how some members just have total opposite thoughts. Some people are like, we shouldn't talk about art quilts because there's a guild for that. And other people are like, hey, what topics do you want? Let's talk about art quilts. So it's really interesting to kind of see just, how many things are similar and then how many people have divergent thoughts. Thanks for filling it in. It really helps us as a guild as an executive to try and figure out what to bring for programming and how to structure guild. And It's great. And one of the things that was kind of interesting was how many people loved being able to do workshops from home. And, you know, the possibility of potentially doing that in the future. The amount of comments of people who were like, I love that I didn't have to drive. Many people were like, I love that I didn't have to pack up my sewing machine. I had my whole stash so I could run and grab a piece of fabric. So people really enjoy doing workshops from home. So that's something for us to consider potentially continue doing in the future, because that was a really one small silver lining from this darn pandemic. Yeah, so that link will go out to you, I think probably this afternoon, Linda. So those of you who would like to see the survey results, you can go there and take a read.
Thanks, Angelina. And I was so happy to see that there were 46 responses or something like that. But it was a great response rate. So that's wonderful. And I appreciate everybody who took the time to answer that. Okay. Move spotlight. There we go. And the next thing I have on our agenda, we have an in-guild mini swap that we have that we're organizing. So we have had quite a few people sign up already. Partner assignments will go out on Monday. So if anybody is interested in that mini swap, and so it's just in guild, the person that you're making a mini quilt for will be one of our own guild members. So all you need to do to sign up for this is send me an email. Tell me if you have dislikes and likes, what you'd like to see. So we will have those partner assignments go out on Monday. And so those mini quilts are due in May. All right. So the next item that we have is the swap, a direct swap. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Michael Ann. It's one person. Yes,
that's what I mean. Is it the
yes,
same people? So you have one partner and you are making for each other.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. I didn't think about having some sort of chain. I don't know how to organize that. So, okay, maybe next year you'll get to organize that, Michael Ann. All right.
I just about spit something out of my nose. Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, so we're on to program next. Should we take a 5-minute bio break? Jan is going to be up next, and I'm going to highlight her, or she can spotlight herself. But so let's take a 5-minute break, and we can talk amongst ourselves. So that anybody needs a bio break before we get started with the program, we can do that. All right. So we will be back here at 10 to 2. All right, it is 10:02. And we have most people back. I'm going to turn this over to Jan.
Okay, thank you, Linda. I have 4 parts to this demo and explanation. It's all based on Quilt As You Go. There's a wide variety of Quilt As You Go styles and methods. So we're going to look at some of them that and all of us can use easily. So I'm going to, first of all, share a PowerPoint. And I'm also going to be sharing some online videos. So I'm going to go into that first. So hopefully, it tells me that the participants can see, and I hope my machine is not lying to me. So do you see my very plain white screen that says part 1?
Yes.
Good, super. Okay, so I'm going to start with creating one type of block that is oftentimes used in Quilt As You Go, and it's fun and it's quick and it's super easy. If you've never done it before, you'll pick it up in a nanosecond, believe me. It's a great place to start if you've never tried. What it consists of is a very easy construction. You layer the back of your block, a piece of batting. It's really best to use something that's kind of low loft, and like all cotton or cotton poly blend, something like that, or bamboo, any of those, all of them work. And then you add fabric pieces in a variety of different ways. You put a piece of fabric down, right side up, you put another piece of fabric, right sides together on top of it, sew it together right on the batting, flip it over, press it, and you're good to go. So I'm going to give you an example. So this is the quilt that Linda Carter had in Show and Share in January, and it was one of the first donations to the Learning Center. This is a...
And we're
Yes?
only seeing your very first
Okay.
slide.
You're only seeing the first one, so I'm going to stop the share and go back and click on this again, and now you should see it. Do you see Linda's quilt? Pink.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So this is the stitch and flip method. So on this quilt, there are 12 blocks. Each one is sewn using strips of various widths sewn on the diagonal across the block. The block would then be trimmed, and Linda's put it together with very thin strips of pink with a darker pink cornerstone. So it works beautifully, and it is a very quick thing to make. Construction methods. Doesn't matter which kind of sew and flip Quilt As You Go block you're going to make. They all basically start the same way. You layer your batting, and then you start with your strips on top of the batting. So here's just a quick run through. So I've got a piece of batting with the backing underneath it, and I cut up a bunch of strips and then started laying them out. Now, the one that Linda did went straight across on the diagonal. That's one easy style to do, but you can do almost anything that would be a simple block that you would make. So like a log cabin or something like that, that you start in the middle and just keep adding strips and going out. It all works. So here's an example. Down at the bottom, I've got the first piece, which is in the middle of green print, and around it I've put 2 orange and 2 sort of chartreuse colors. Right now, that's where I want them to end up. Everything is face up, right side up. So I'm going to put the orange face down on top of the green and sew it together, and then the other. So I'll go on to the next block. These are 4 simple little examples just to give you the idea that you can do almost anything. In the lower left side is a log cabin. Above that is basically it's sort of a variation of a log cabin that started with a triangle. So once again, you just lay your strips down, sew, flip, press. Top right is a pineapple block. very same construction. So lay them together, sew, flip, and press. Very, very easy. The bottom is an improv. It started, I believe, with the same green center. Yeah, I think I went for that idea. So if you'll see, there's a triangular little piece, and then I just kept moving out. Now, it's important when you're doing these, because you're going to trim off extra fabric, to remember when you sew it, I think you can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse moving?
Yeah.
Good, super. So when you sew, just sew from the edge of your fabric, especially if you're doing ones that are not edge to edge strips, because you're going to want to trim that off. So I started that seam here and I ended it here. And then I'm going to just go back and trim this. I started here, I added this one, then I added this one, then I added these orange flowers. Then I decided, oh, it's not quite as big as I wanted, so I added the skinny little strip there. Then I put the two sides on. But in each case, I only sewed, so that first triangular line, it started about there, and it ended up a little over there. Because there were extra bits of fabric that I could just easily trim off. It is a very forgiving way of sewing a block. You can even do curves using the same method. This one has some, you can sew curves directly, or this very easy method that uses bias tape. So there's lots of different things you can do with this method. Once you've got a whole bunch of blocks together and have trimmed them appropriately, or you then have to sew them together, but they don't have to be stitch and flip. You can make a block, any block, applique, pieced, whatever you want to make. You've got a block, you've got all your blocks, and then quilt it in your own way. You can put your block on top of batting, on top of backing, and then quilt it. And you can quilt that block any way you want, walking foot, free motion, whatever you want. The advantage of quilt as you go is that whatever size that block is, that's all you're working with when you go to quilt it. So you're quilting a 12-inch square, you're quilting a 16-inch square. Maybe you're going all crazy and you're doing a 20-inch square. It's still a lot smaller than a full-size quilt. So you can have some fun with quilting and not be struggling with a block. So the next several slides, I'm going to pass it over to Pat, because all these photos are from her, and she uses Quilt As You Go all the time, not for little things, but for big things. The one you're seeing next is part of a king-size quilt, but the individual pieces are what gets blocked. So Pat, you're ready to go. I'm going to your first slide now.
Okay, thanks, Jan. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. As Jan said, this is a king size alphabet quilt of the sailing flags that are used primarily with sailboats, but I think they're used with power boats as well. And I have a nephew who is a keen sailor, and he asked me to make him a quilt. And so it has 30 blocks. They will be 5 across and 6 down, and it will be actually even a little bit bigger than king size. So the first thing that I did was I made all the blocks. I've got pictures of the flags that are used in the sailing, and each one of them, they represent the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, and then there are 4 that are used to lay out the courses that they race over. So that gave me the 30 blocks that I needed. And I don't even know what letters of the alphabet these 2 are, but these are 2 of the blocks that are finished. They are 18.5 inches square, and they are quilted, as you can see. I just made the top, the back is solid blue, and I layered it with batting and quilted it in a sort of a geometric way, because I just thought that suited the particular flags. So these are the 2 blocks that I'm going to show you how I join them. So the joining is almost invisible. So next slide, Jan. Okay, first thing you do is trim.
Sorry, I went I hit it too vigorously. There we go.
Yeah. So the first thing you do after you've quilted each of the blocks is you have to trim them very precisely to exactly the right size. So these are the same 2 blocks that you saw in the previous slide, and they are trimmed to exactly 18.5 inches square, both of them. Then you cut 2 strips of fabric. Next slide, Jan. The strip on the left is 1 inch wide, and the strip on the right is 1 1/4 inch wide. The inch wide strip is sewn face down. Now, when you're working with solids, you know, face up and face down is not nearly as critical as it would be if you were using a fabric that was noticeably different on the front and the back. But I have never done that, so I don't know. So you put the 1 inch strip on the front of one of the blocks, just pick one, and you need, of course, to know which side you want to join the 2 blocks together with. You put the 1 inch strip on the front and the 1 1/4 inch strip on the back. And you can see in the picture down in the corner, that's what I've done there. I have put the 2 strips on, and I just put a couple pins in to show you what I've done. I generally don't pin them. Next slide, Jan. Then you just sew down through all of the layers. So you're sewing through the 1 inch strip on the front, all 3 layers of the block, the front, the batting, and the back, and through the 1 1/4 inch strip, which is on the back. Then after you've sewn through all those layers, you press the 2 pieces of sashing over, which is the lower right-hand picture. And you can see the one on the back sticks out a little further because it's 1 1/4 inch. And now you've got 3/4 inch and 1 inch. Now, these pictures are a little more difficult to see. You take the second large block that you're joining it to, you lay it on your table face up, and you put the block that you have attached the 2 strips to face down on it with the 1 inch strip lined up along the edge of the second block, the block that you're attaching it to, and stick a couple pins in it, being very careful to make sure that you have moved the 1 1/4 inch strip out of the way. You can see it folded over toward the left. And you can see where I put the pins, that's the line you're going to sew on. So that's the 1 1/4 inch strip that Jan's pointing out there. And the 1 inch strip is there and resting along the front of the block that you're attaching it to. The next slide, Jan. Then you sew again through, this time you're sewing through the 1 inch strip, the front of the block, the batting, and the back of the block of the second block, the block that you are joining the first block to. After you sew down that edge, 1/4 inch in, incidentally, I should have mentioned, this is all 1/4 inch, the seam allowance. Then when you flip it over, you have what's shown in the lower diagram, and I apologize for the fact this is a very dark navy fabric that I was working with, but if you can see across horizontally, there are 2 seams that run across. The top and the bottom of the picture are the 2 blocks, and that seam, that 1/2 inch strip across the middle is the sashing that joins them. So it in essence becomes invisible. So all I've done here is just flipped it over and pressed it. The next slide. Okay, so, well, there's a better picture of what the front now looks like. The 2 blocks have been joined. They have a 1/2 inch strip between them, and you really don't even see it if it's all done in the same fabric. Now, flip the whole thing over. So you're now looking at the back of the 2 blocks, and you have the 1 1/4 inch strip, which you can now fold over your seam allowance and pin it. I always pin from the middle out. Like when you fold your 1/4 inch under and lay it down onto the block, I start in the middle and work out to the edges, because then I don't know, it just seems to fit better as you kind of ease it in. I just finger press this. I don't even use an iron on the diagram that you're shown on the right there. And the next diagram, I think, shows all the pins in it. Yes, there it is, all pinned together. And then you see, I love to sit and watch television, particularly when the Olympics are on, and have a lot of hand stitching little jobs to do. And I hand stitch this binding down. Now, I've seen lots of videos where people machine stitch it. I am not that confident that you could sew through from the front and pick it up as neatly as I like it to look. So I just take my needle and thread and sit and watch television and chat with my husband and hand stitch across. Now, I put the blocks, I think that's the last one, isn't it, Jan?
So there's one more.
One more, okay. What's the, oh, all right. This is 4 blocks joined together using this method. And that's what I was going to say. I sew them, I put them together in 2s. A lot of patterns, when they talk about doing this or instructions, they say to do, you know, like 5 across, and then you have 6 rows that you have to join, and you have 6 very long seams. I don't do it that way. I join them in 2s, then I join them in 4s, then I build up to 6s. And what I try to do is minimize the number of really long seams that I have to do, because of course, those are the awkward ones if you're working with a really big quilt. I don't want to be doing very many that are 90 or 95 inches long. So the way I've got mine laid out right now with the 30 blocks, I only have to do that twice. So I would not recommend putting them together in rows or columns. I would instead put them into 4 patches and 6 patches and 8 patches, and then join them together. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. That's it.
Thank you, Pat. All right. So yeah, I'm so glad Pat agreed to send me all those photos, and I hope I got them all right side up for her, because when she's done her quilts, they don't even look like they have sashing on them, but I know they all do have sashing on them. And I want to tell you, they are big. If you were putting together a queen size, oversized queen size quilt, and we're trying to quilt that, you would be ready for the insane asylum if you're not on a long arm. But this way it's manageable and it really, really looks good. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. I'm going to stop this screen now, because this is a multi-part extravaganza on sashing. What I've got is now a video out of Australia. There are lots of videos out there online for helping you look through. I have highlighted 3, and they will be included in the handout that you get, so that you can go back and look at those ones on your at your leisure if you want to look at them again. But you don't have to stop with that particular one. You have other options, but I'll give you the links to the ones that I have found useful. Okay, so that's the first one. The second major group, or biggest group, of assembling Quilt As You Go blocks is to do it without sashing at all. And there's some pluses for both methods. It ends up being a personal choice, but the video I'm going to show you is one of the ways of doing it with no sashing. And there it is. Are you looking at a computer internet screen?
Yes, Quilt As You Go without sashing, 2 techniques.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to hit the little triangle that tells me it's going to go. Where is my little triangle that tells me it's going to go? Where you go? Oh, there it is, maybe. Oh, come on, I had this all ready.
Isn't it down at the bottom of that black box? Down, oh.
It was.
Because you've already watched it, it's got like a little round arrow instead for replay. So farther to the left, there you go.
There we go. Let me make this bigger for you. Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
Good. Put your volume up. She doesn't talk much. This is a gal that
You go full screen, bottom right usually.
As you can see, she shows a walking foot, which I think is brilliant, because if you were turning those blocks around for all those walking foot turns, you'd be really going crazy.
Ah. Now, instead of sewing that batting together, could you use a fusible batting tape?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Dan, Alicia
Yes.
asks, Alicia's asked in the chat, do you have to sew the batting together? Have you done this? Have you not?
Sorry, the sound is so hot. I can't almost hear you, Linda.
And you could mute the sound because it's just music anyway. You could mute the video.
I have done this without sewing the batting together.
Have you?
Yes.
And it doesn't shift?
No, it doesn't shift as long as it's fairly, as long as you keep it fairly narrow. I've done sashings up to about 2 inches wide, but if I get that wide, then I either stitch it down or stick it down with something, because probably I'm going to quilt over it anyway. But I wouldn't do all that sewing.
Harry asks about doing it the other way, sewing the backing together first and folding the top and machine top stitch it that way. That sounds like it would work, Carrie. We're not seeing it anymore.
Unmute. That was as far as I wanted to go with that first video. This was a method that I started using about 10 years ago, although I don't do it exactly the same way as hers. It's a good video. It's the kind of video, though, that I think you'd get a lot more out if you were just watching it on your own and you could pause and keep going with it. She's got some good ideas. I love the fact that she uses very simple pad blocks when she's demonstrating it, because she's really just focusing on putting the blocks together. So it's super good in that sense. There's so I put together some photos from my own blocks. So I'm going to share that one with you right now. And it's this one. Part 2, yes, it does. Can you see my part 2?
Yeah.
Can you see the next screen? The second screen? No, it didn't change. Okay, that's something that always seems to happen with the PowerPoint, so I'm going to do that again. It seems to need, now are you on my second screen with the batting?
Yes.
Okay, super. So here's to go through it a little bit more slowly. The nice thing about this method is if you're designing a quilt where you don't want any sashing, but you got a lot of fabric prints or solids or colors all coming together, putting in that sashing strip is going to perhaps interfere with what you're designing. So it's a good second method to use, and you can do it for anything, a piece block, an applique block, anything at all. So on the table right here, I've got the wrong side of my backing fabric, and it's cut at 14 inches square. And then I've got a piece of batting that's cut, I believe, at 12 inches square. So there's 1 inch around the whole thing. That's to give me all kinds of extra space for quilting, because of course, depending on how much quilting you do, it will shrink it up a lot, okay? And there's the blocks, the first 2 blocks that are put together this way. They're started to quilt, but if you look at them, you'll see there is a red line. So this 14-inch block, I've got a red line 2 inches from the edge, a full 2 inches, okay? And then I've quilted inside that 2-inch border, which is just drawn on my fabric. And then busily went and quilted, as probably even not as much quilting as I would normally do, but they're done. Okay, so this one is quilted, this one is quilted, this one also has that 2-inch border all the way around. They're ready to now put together with no sashing on either the front or the back. Okay, so in the next picture, the next job to do is to trim it. So right now there's not an awful lot of quilting on it. It's a little under 14 inches. I want to make a 12-inch block, and I don't mind losing that 1/2 inch of fabric because I know I'm going to get a really precise measurement when I'm done. So I am now trimming that down to 12.5 inches for a 12-inch block. And when you put the ruler on to trim it, make sure you're even up with the batting that's underneath. So you've got equal amounts of batting with away from the border on all 4 sides. And that's really quite simple to do. And then the next step is very similar to what you saw in that online video. You fold back. This is standard with all non-sashed quilt as you go. You fold back the backing and the batting that's loose. Remember, there was a 2-inch free zone there. And then you put the front parts together. So that's the back side of my front. I just flip them over, pin them together just as she did, pin it together and sew that line. The seam that I sew is 3/8 of an inch. I find it makes it easier to really force the batting to butt up effectively, okay? Then take the pins out and lay the batting flat, and it should butt together. You might have to trim it a little bit with your scissors, but I rarely find that I have to. But it's laying flat there and it's side by side, and I do not have that overhanging batting and cross stitching it. I use batting tape, and that comes available on a roll, and I've had this one for 5 years probably. You don't need much of it. That's a 12-inch strip because I did not want to go into the seam allowance. It hasn't been pressed in place yet. I've just laid it down, tacky side down against the batting. The tacky side is the one that feels rough, so it lays flat. There's the backing free on one side. On the other side, I fold in and press a 1/4 inch. So that's the folded seam there. And then I'll lay this one over top of that seam tape first. This one goes over top of that, and then I press. And I do press at this point with steam because that is stainless seam tape. And it's a really good bond. It holds like crazy, but it doesn't add any stiffness. It's the one you use to make bigger batting pieces when you're piecing together smaller pieces. So in the next bat, this is what it looks like from the bat. That is my folded edge right there. It's not attached yet because that batting adhesive strip only attaches to the batting. And this is the part, this side is tucked underneath. So then I pin here, usually about 4 pins, just right along that edge. And I do them parallel to the seam so I know exactly where my seam is. I flip it over and because I'm going to quilt from this side, and I'll put a safety pin in. There was a straight pin right there, and I put the safety pin in. I know I've grabbed that. And I don't care if I've grabbed it 1/8 of an inch away, 1/4 of, like a 1/16 of an inch. It doesn't matter as long as you've grabbed it. Because what you're going to do now, and this is what's fun, this is why you see this big section in here that's not quilted? There's where it left off. That's thread. It was the starting of my quilting on this side, and that was where that red line was. I just pulled my threads to the inside. They're all tucked in between the layer right now. So all that's there is just the beginning stitch. And now I'm going to quilt. And I quilt over top of, there's my seam, and I go back and forth. And I mean, this particular sample, I just did something real, string of loops. It could be anything. I could do a crosshatch or anything I want, as long as it's fairly strong, fairly dense, or close enough together to be secure. And I stop at the red line because I don't want to go out. So this is where the 2 blocks have joined together, but this is their other side, and that's the side that's going to join to the next row, right? So you don't want to quilt in that because you're going to repeat the process. So in this one, it's just going back and forth with a little bit of a free motion back and forth. There's the back when I'm done. Now I know where the seam is because there's the garden path that got interrupted, and there's a park bench that got cut in half. So this is the back. You would not see that seam apart from that. So if what you've got on the back is an overall print that you really want to be able to see with no sashing in the middle of it, this does the job. It becomes truly invisible. You just meander back and forth over it. Across the bottom and across the top, it's still unquilted because that's where the next 2. And here's where the front is. Now, my lines are still in place. They haven't been erased yet, but I know where that seam is. It's right there. But if I wasn't running my mouse up and down, I don't think you'd see it. It works with any style of quilting. I've also done this with walking foot. And all I do basically then is plan a walking foot motif that's going to go like maybe ziggy-zaggy using the back stitch or something like that. or one that's maybe just perpendicular. I did do one where I did sort of matchsticky type stuff, not super straight, just sort of meandering slightly. And so that is a variation on the one that's the video, but I think the video is good for you to have because then you can go back and look at it again on your own. So now there's two different ways of approaching. And now the last one, stop sharing, is another, there's no sound with this one because it isn't a video. I could not find a video for this one, but the last one is one I've never done. It absolutely blows my mind because it is, there we go. So I'm now going to share that last one, which is an online tutorial, and it's putting a quilt together using Quilt As You Go blocks. And I'm not even going to tell you ahead of time what it does because it, the first time I saw it, it sort of blew my mind too. I thought, how is that possible? And the first one I saw was out of a series of tutorials out of the UK. Apparently, it's a fairly popular way of joining blocks in the UK. So now I'm going to share that screen again with okay, no sound with this one. It's an online tutorial, which is great because I find them quite useful to, you know, you can go take it at your own speed. But what this gal does, and it's I forget her first name now, but her website is Stitched in Color. It works with almost any kind of quilt you want. She makes her blocks, and a lot of the samples that she shows are walking foot samples. And here's where it gets kind of interesting. She does quilting right to the edge. So it's a classic quilt as you go block, edge to edge. But if you'll notice, that's batting. That's not backing. She only uses 2 layers. So there's the front, which can be anything, pieced, applique, whatever you want. And then there's a piece of batting, and then it's quilted. So parallel straight lines, little double crosshatch there, whatever she wants to try. There's a few up there, different things. And she sews them together right through the batting. She uses 3/8 inch seam to give herself a little extra. And I've seen a few other tutorials where she talks about this. And then she presses this open. So this is a fairly thick seam because it's got batting in it. She sews right through the batting. But it works. I did try it on a small sample, like a 5-inch square, just to see how it would work. And that seam really did press with steam flat. It was bulky, but a lot of the online question and answers say, well, how can you do that? Isn't it going to be super, super bulky and everything else like that? And I love this. She says, my answer is nope. It's no problem whatsoever. I've got a master bed quilt for years that was done this way, and you never notice the extra bulk. She puts the backing on after the whole quilt is put together. And here's how she does it. She lays her backing, plain flat backing down, puts the quilt on top of it, uses some pins. She says pins work better than spray-based for this because that top is, and that top I can imagine would be perfectly solid. It's every single square block is squared up before you start. So it's going to be perfectly squared up. It's all going to be quilted. It's going to be sturdy as can be. And because you've sewn through batting, you could shake that quilt and it's not coming apart in any way. Now this is the only liability. I'm not so sure I could do this with a king size. What she does then is she stitches up that line and just barely off the seam line. And she goes and does, so if that's 12 inches, her seams with a walking foot would be 12 inches apart. Not so bad as if you were going to do, matchstick quilting on a large quilt. But this is the other thing she does. She says, sometimes I just go and use fancy stitches, a zigzag, a this, a that, a whatever. And I've read a few other articles. The first time I saw her, she was in a quilting magazine out of the UK. And she says, oh no, my quilts never come apart. They're super sturdy and they keep their shape no matter how many times you wash them. And they're relatively easy to do. So this is what the back of her, where's the picture of the back? She had one where she showed the back, and maybe it's not on this site. Anyway, I have never made a quilt this way. I can't vouch for it, but I thought it was kind of an interesting idea that I would share with you. So I am now done, and I will put the two PowerPoints together, convert to a PDF, and include the links for anyone who wants to go back and check them out.
Super, thanks, Jan. A couple of questions that came in, and one suggestion is to use a very busy backing so that you can't see the seams on it, which is a great idea.
What was that again, Linda?
Anne is suggesting to use a very busy print so that you don't actually see the seams, like on the back of that pathway one that you had.
Oh, yeah, the pathway ones. I wasn't too concerned about the fact. Generally, I do use kind of all over prints, but that one I really wanted because what I was making was something that I wanted, that park scene, and I figured it doesn't matter if the path doesn't join. It's but yes, you're right. If I was concerned about it matching block to block, then I would just use something that didn't have that kind of directionality. I don't think I'd ever pick stripes.
And so the other question that came in was about the donation quilts. Is there any concern about trying to coordinate the backing fabric of donated quilts?
Talked about that. A couple of us at the executive meeting, I think it was, and we decided that a variety of squares at the back would be fun. The front is the design, but the back would be just a scrappy look of, and they're big. The blocks, well, the first month blocks were big, and I think the ones that were here today, Karen's, they were also fairly big. So I think big squares is not a bad. I actually saw somebody who planned to do that and took a layer cake. That's a bit of an expensive way to do it, I think, but they had taken a layer cake and turned it into their backing, and it looked really kind of cool. So I don't think there's a problem with all the backs being different. If people don't want to do the quilting on the blocks that they plan to make and donate for the blocks of the month, then don't do it. Just donate the top, donate the pieced top, and we'll work it out. Which brings me, thank you, Linda, for bringing that in. We have a fun project for next month. Actually, it was desperation, I will admit. We are planning, of course, the year. We've got a lot of things planned for your future. April, May, June, July, August, September, November, it's all done. March was up in the air. It was like a bouncing ball. Are we together? Are we not together? Are we together? Are we not together? I had planned on some guild members doing demonstration classes, talks in 3 of our months, but that's not fair to them to say, oh, let's do it in March and you may or you may not be in person. That wasn't going to work. So they are in the summertime now, starting in June, July, and August. So March is going to be, and this is for all the old timers in the guild who've been here, almost since the beginning. When we first started out and there were 17 of us sitting around the table, our monthly meetings consisted of people showing what they had done, showing how to do things they had done, and then we all tried it. So we thought, well, let's call upon 2 people. And so I turned to our stalwart leader, Linda, and she's one of our demos. And the other one is a bit of a teaser because you saw it on my photos there with my funky houses. I have a pattern that was designed about 8 years ago. So I'm going to use that one and show you how to make those funky, funky houses. And both of them lend themselves to quilt as you go. So we're going to do physical in the building demos of different people doing parts of the quilt as you go. And then we're going to take, if anybody has brought in March, blocks that were already made from the block of the month, we can use those. And if they're not there, they'll make the blocks that you will make blocks from Linda's lesson and from my lesson. And these blocks are very easy to put together, right, Linda? They will go together fast. So you will get 4 blocks. And if you get 4 blocks, then with people walking around to help you, you will go through quilt as you go on your 4 blocks and see how it works and how easy it is to put together. And you can try one method, or you can say, oh no, I don't think I'd ever want to use that method. I'll use this method instead. Once again, we've got helpers for both sides of the equation, and you'll get a chance to do your quilt as you go on your own 4 blocks that you made that day. And it will be, it'll be a little echo of the past for the old timers who've been with the guild since, Kristen, since day one. I think, and Mary, there's actually quite a few people in the guild. I mean, I could name a few people who used to sit around that table in the back of Chantel's shop. So I think it will be a fun day, and I think you'll get a good lesson out of it. But the other nice thing about it is we are also going to be able to test the recreational center's amazing video facility, which we want to use going forward, so that in April, when we have Shannon Fraser, or in May, when we have Cindy Grisdelda, or in September, when we have, what's her name, Tara, and in November, when we have Noelle, we will be doing that in the community center with a hybrid meeting. Some people will still be at home, because I know we have members who wouldn't be able to come in, but they still are going to get the benefit of the lesson and the talk and the presentation and the workshop. So that facility has Zoom at it. We'll be able to plug in the computer. So whether you're there physically in March or on your computer, you'll be able to go through the process. You'll get Linda's block, you'll get my block, you'll get the demos of those blocks being actually physically quilted while it's happening. I have well, I can't pick it up because it's my camera, but my camera's on a tripod, so I can move around the room and take pictures and, view people's work at their computer or at their sewing machine, and Linda will be posting it on the big screen for us. So it'll be a fun chance for us to test out, are we really as smart as we think we are with technology? Can I have one more thing to say? Because I didn't want to forget this. I now have a new member of program. Sharon Taylor has very kindly agreed to join me. She had some great ideas. We got together and talked. One of the ideas we were hoping to start soon, but unfortunately there's so many things happening in the guild right now, between the startup of projects with Linda Carter and various other things going, it wasn't going to work. But I'm still very appreciative of the fact that Sharon is joining me, and looking forward to doing some fun things with Sharon in the future.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jan. So I've got 3 more things. We've got show and share. We've got the pillowcase sew along, and I think that Karen had one more piece of quilt as you go option. So let's do Karen's information of quilt as you go, and then I'll do show and share, and then we'll do the pillowcase.
So Linda, you're going to add this, the website or whatever it is?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't have a video or anything because I'm not nearly that smart. well, I'm just not that tech savvy. But this is sashing. It's called sashing, sash in a dash. It has pluses, it has pros, it has cons. So it's a June Taylor product. So Taylor is Tailor. And it's a two-sided 1-inch double fold casing. So it comes in 6 colors. I believe it comes in white, beige, light gray, navy blue, and red. So those are your options. And it's a channel. So if you do your block, you quilt your block, you trim it to the size you want it. And then you put it in, you insert it into the double fold bias. And then your second block across from that block goes into the other channel. So I don't know if I can explain it. So it's a wide piece of bias tape that's sewn down the middle. So it creates 2 side-by-side channels. And you just put your batting piece in, you place it in. So it's like the sashing's already been made for you, right? So it's like a channel, comes in 6 colors. So you're sort of limited to your colors. If you're making a pink quilt, then you have to probably choose white or something. And here you go, are you ready? It's $4.40 a yard US, which I thought was a bit steep. Yeah. So, but there is a video that shows you how on the June Taylor site. So it looks easy peasy. I think the cost is maybe a bit prohibitive. I don't know. I guess if you're just making a small, like a crib quilt or a small quilt, it wouldn't be too bad, but that would be pricey to do a queen. Yeah. But anyway, but it looks really, I've never made one that way, but it looks really quite simple.
Might be a really good product, Sharon or Karen, for somebody who's never done quilt as you go before sashing and wanted to get a handle on it. Give it a test on something small, like a table.
I wonder if anybody sells it locally.
I think Tammy told me that Cherished Pieces in
Tilsonburg.
Tilsonburg. I think that's.
Well, I may just go investigate it and buy a roll and try it out. But I would think that'd be pretty pricey for a large quilt.
All right, great. Thanks, Karen.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Linda Carter is suggesting that we postpone the pillowcase sew along, but I do have the show and share. I have some great, things that people are sharing. I'm always amazed by what our guild is doing. It's such cool work. Is everybody seeing the show and share on their screens?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So the first ones are from Nora Boyd. And here, this is for her. I don't think Nora's on the call. Nora, I didn't see Nora. So this is her swap quilt for the Modern Quilt Guild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
What a fun way to do the One Block Wonder and add in the little triangles.
Yeah.
She's also working on, she's learning how to do some long arm quilting. So she did this harmony quilt pattern from, I can never pronounce her name, Erica Gudrun, GE Quilt Designs. So she's created the quilt and also the quilting details. She's done some McTavishing. McTavishing are these swoopy lines with the beautiful fill. So she's doing some beautiful long arm quilting as she's doing her quilts. The next one is Elaine's, and I think Elaine is on the call.
Yep, I'm here. This is the new release from Christina D. Miranda. She had us test this out. She gave us a really tight timeline of about 10 days to test the pattern.
Wow.
And that's including finding her material. Anyway, it had a lot of fun, but it is really intermediate to expert level.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Elaine.
Yeah.
I would really suggest do not use printer paper for this. It is too thick. The points are very fine. I would use foundation paper to do it. Anyway, I really enjoyed it.
It's beautiful.
You're still up.
This is another quilt that I tested for her in December. She got married the beginning of December and delayed getting us the pattern for a few days because she was getting married. So we had from about December 7th to January 7th to do this. And there's, like I said, 2,242 pieces in here. It's strip quilting. You create strips and then you subcut the strips and then you create blocks, and lots of fun. It was in honor of her grandmother, who was from Portugal. And these are woven blankets that a particular province in Portugal creates. So she's created one because her grandmother always had one. And she got to spend a few months with her grandmother before her grandmother passed away. So it's an honor to her grandmother. I had lots of fun doing this.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love that you tried a new color in it and now really enjoy it.
Oh, I love the eggplant. Oh, you really can't see the true tones of it in the color, but
yeah.
But it's beautiful material. All that material I bought in Exeter from the Quilt Kitchen.
Right. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Stephanie has a really fun quilt. Stephanie was on earlier. Are you on this still?
Well, that's her Nicholas Ball.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Mhm.
She did a great job.
I like the contrast between the prints and the solid backs.
Yes. I like the mountain ranges that she's got going. It's awesome. And Stephanie's one of our new members.
Ah. Well done.
It is. And Linda Hoffner also was creating more triangles. Was Linda on the call?
Yeah.
Gorgeous. I like how you quilted it.
Yeah, I'm coming to terms with it, but I don't live on a mountainside, so this is to represent my bush at the farm, and my husband planted the bush. We planted over 3,000 trees. So you enter the bush always from the front, and the front is on the bottom. So I wanted to make sure you looked at my quilt from the bottom and then went up as if you're going through the bush. So I hoped that that focal point Jackie Gearing technique worked. But I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Quite happy.
Great. Linda has more.
Well, I always like to make greeting cards. I have a hard time sending them, but when I go to any like Embroiderers Guild or something like that, I'm always buying them. So I enjoy making some. So this is David Hastings' technique.
Look wonderful.
Yeah.
Super. Thanks, Linda.
Great idea, those cards.
Yeah. Lorraine. Lorraine was
That
on
is
earlier.
not made by Mom.
Oh dear. My apologies.
Lorraine Swanson, maybe?
Let me check.
It's very pretty though. I quite like it.
Oh dear.
Actually, that one's mine.
Oh, okay.
Pretty.
I'm sorry. Who did I misattribute that to?
Oh, that one's mine, Carrie.
Okay, sorry about that, Carrie. Let me
No
just
worries.
fix that. There we go.
Carrie was thinking someone did exactly the same quilt as me.
Wow.
Oh, I love that.
You?
And is this one Lorraine's?
Yeah, that one's mine. So, and that was, this is the first time I've done the mini swap for the Modern Gildan. It was really fun. I had more fun than I expected just with that process of emailing back and forth a little bit with her and just chatting a little bit. So anyway, she liked both traditional and more modern quilts. So I, of course, thought I would do an improv take on a log cabin for her. And she was really big on blues and purples are her things. So.
Beautiful. And you can see some of the detail
Fun.
here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's just a detail. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just finished up my swap that I did as well. So, and I did mine in the biscotti quilt process that Brandon Wolf is teaching. And my swap partner is in Italy, and she wanted to she's very abstract. She didn't want anything representational or to look like anything specific. So she wanted it to be very abstract, but she does love saturated colors. And she's also a photographer, and she likes photographing flowers. And so this is to look sort of floralish in the colors. And that's some of the detail of the quilting. And it's got a very bright backing as well. And I faced the quilts, and it's kind of hard to see here, but I've got corners, the four corners are little pockets so that it's easy for her to hang.
Great.
So that is, so there we go. That is our show and share. All right.
Linda,
So,
I had sent you mine.
you did.
Yeah, I thought I sent one in too.
I know.
That's okay. Next one.
Next one's okay, I guess.
Oh dear. I will find those and include them in the.
I can show. Can I show the physical quilt?
Yes,
I still have
yes,
it. I'm going to be
please.
giving it away.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This might
Sorry
mean I
about
have to stand on a stool or something because this quilt is enormous.
Right.
So I'm not sure how this is going to work.
Yeah.
Oh, the salvage
have
quilt.
to move.
The salvage quilt, yes.
How are we going to do it?
Oh boy. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, 1 second.
1 second. So it is a generous cake.
Okay, hold on here.
And pretty heavy and made with salvages. So I have been collecting salvages for all of most of the 14-ish years that I've been quilting. And this is the 13th year that I've put a quilt into the Mennonite Central Committee's relief sale. And it may have become a little cursed because of that, because there are so many layers on this thing that I made the women who do the hand quilting on it very angry. They said that they would not accept any future salvage quilts, foundation piecing, or pieced backs. With a lot of layers, and they broke a lot of needles, and they wanted to inspect my quilt for next year to just make sure it was easier to do. So it's a monster, but it's a beautiful monster.
Gorgeous. I hope you're able to get a visual on that.
It's huge. It's got like a giant star, and then it's sort of medallion style with like these borders and stuff.
And
So
fabulous salvages.
Fabulous salvages. Just very elaborate salvages.
All right, thanks for adding that.
You should name that when I broke the quilters.
Yeah.
I like that, Karen.
That's funny.
You should name
Oh,
it
those,
Brooke
those
Mennonite.
poor, those poor women. They're probably saying, you tell her. No, you tell her. No,
Yes.
you tell her.
Yes, they felt very bad about it, but they were very firm.
beautiful.
And Linda, my apologies on your quilt too. I will send pictures of that with the follow-up information. Do you have it there too?
Oh, don't worry about it. I'll just put it in for next month.
Okay. Right.
That's the easiest.
Okay,
No
sorry
worries.
about that.
That's okay.
Oh dear. Oh, and that's my favorite part of the whole meeting is sharing the quilt. So my apologies to both of you for not getting those in. Good intentions run amok. All right. Do we have any questions or comments? Anything people want to bring up before we close up the meeting?
I hope to see everybody in person next month.
Yes. All right. So I think that does it. And I think we made our 3 o'clock-ish time.
Yeah. Good meeting, Linda.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you
Bye.
later.